Let's dial it back in here. Best part of the day, a lot of fun stuff here with Google Earth products that we can play around with. They're fun to use, pretty easy to use, and you can really mine some really cool stuff out of here. We'll play around a little bit with the Google Earth desktop application. I'll show you a tool called Google Earth Pro, and don't panic over Pro, it's free. And also tools like I have behind me here called Google Earth Time-Lapse. And to access this, you go to a website called earthengine.google.com. All one word, earthengine.google.com. earthengine.google.com. And when you get to Earth Engine, click on Time-Lapse, that little tab right up at the top that I'm pointing straight up to. And it should default to what you see on the screen. earthengine.google.com. Everybody get there okay? Is it popping up? It's a little quirky. Sometimes you have to reload it now and then it'll freeze up on you. This website is a partnership between Google, Carnegie Mellon, NASA, and the U.S. Geological Survey, the USGS. And what it is 34 years, or 32 years, excuse me, of satellite imagery over a specific area that plays through in a little timeline. You can see that little line racing across the bottom and showing you the different years. And you can tell certain types of stories pretty well with this, okay? It goes from 1984, which is as far back as their satellite imagery around the U.S., around the world goes, and it goes up to 2016. We're still waiting on some 2017 and 2018 data here, but they plan to expand this. The default that you see on the screen here is Miami. This just shows Miami's growth, city changing and the satellite imagery changing over those 32 years. The first time I saw a media member use this was CNN back in the summer of 2016, about a month after this came out. And they had a guest on that was talking about global warming. And as she was talking about global warming, this was playing on the monitor behind her. And it was showing this glacier melting. So it's good for environmental stories, showing areas that change over a period of time, okay? This can be done for stories, agriculture stories. You can look at the crop patterns change in different areas of Nebraska. It's really good for that, okay? It's also good for, somebody comes in, drops in a pipeline, or, urban sprawl. Cities are starting to spill out and eat up farmland. Really good for stories like that. Here's another example. Las Vegas, one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. over the last 3 decades. Las Vegas, Nevada. This is what a gambling tax will get you. A lot of people move in there so they don't have to pay the property taxes. Sales tax is next to nothing. But what else is going on here is you see the city just explode to the west and to the north. What else is going on in this video screen? Yeah, look at Lake Mead, yeah. Now, Vegas does pump a lot of water back into Lake Mead, and LA does siphon some of it off, but it's not hard to tell that one's impacting the other. It's pretty obvious. You also have desert climate here too, affects it as well. To embed this or share it, you hit the little share or embed button in the lower right-hand corner. It gives you a link or a little iframe embed code very similar to what we just used with Google My Maps, excuse me. Okay, so you can share these. Sometimes I've had students do this. This is kind of fun. They want to share it attached to a tweet. So they'll do a little screencast, Screencast-O-Matic or Screener, QuickTime video player, and they'll record what's on their screen here and attach the video to the tweet then. I think it's a real innovative way to use it. So there's no way to export video out of this, at least not yet. They added a search button about 6 months after they launched this tool. They added this little search button in the upper left. So now you can type in Dubai, and it will take you to Dubai, and you can see the city grow off the water over those 30 years. You can also see the little man-made islands pop up. Bingo. Another interesting one is the Hong Kong airport. Type in Hong Kong International Airport. You can watch the airport rise off of a little island out in the water. It's really cool. One of my students did this one time. This is the Amazon rainforest. You just watch it vanish. The assignment I gave him was pick a data set, find a way to visualize it. You know, some did graphics and charts, some did things like this. Visualization is more than just, you know, charts and graphics and maps and the things we did. It can be this too. It can tell a story this way. Let's go to Lincoln. See what's going on in Lincoln. It's really interesting. Sometimes you'll see cities, the directions they grow outward in. We've seen cities like South Bend, Indiana that grow inward. They grow in around the university. Let's see what Lincoln does. You can zoom in. There's a little zoom button in the upper left. Watch it grow out by the airport there, north of the Highlands. Go down south. That's where it really takes off. So live on South 19th Street. No, 8110 South 20th Street was where I lived. I owned that house for 6 years, right out by Southwest. And all that went in out here. Overtook Yankee Hill and all that. Look at the crop patterns change. It's interesting. Take a second, just type in some locations and go to some different areas around the world. It's kind of an interesting little tool to work with. Anybody find anything interesting? Interesting location we should all go and look at? Yeah, that's a great question. Is it the same time during the year? Yeah, same season. So that's why you don't see like winter in some of these. You know, like you're not seeing 2 years of spring in Nebraska, then winter, then summer, then fall. It's typically in 1 3-month window. Most of them are in the summer. That's why you don't see, unless it's a state that has, you know, year-round. You get up way north Canada and north of Canada and areas like that where you have snow all the time. But you typically will see something within a 3-month window. So you're not seeing, you know, drastic changes in topography. It's a good question, though. And then flood stage, and then bouncing back and forth, you know. And, you know, if you're doing a story on irrigation, too, you can look at the Platte River. You know, they're still irrigating out of the Platte, aren't they? They were when I was here. You know, you can look at the Platte in Lake McConaughey. Yeah, God, I'm going to do that one in the future. That's a good one. Yeah, Lake McConaughey. You know, you can see these changes that are happening on our planet pretty easily. The pipelines that were going in up in North Dakota. I did a couple trainings up there. And they're going to watch that as those pipelines continue to go in. How's it affecting the environment around it? So for certain types of stories, this is a pretty handy little tool to have. You can see this, population stories. You're doing a census story that shows, hey, Lincoln's population has increased from whatever, in the mid-'80s, 185,000, and what are you at now? It's at 240, something like that, 230? What's your population now? Anybody?
County is almost 300.
Yeah. So significant growth over that time. This is a good way to show how the city grew. You have your charts. Your flourish chart can show the population growth as a line chart. Then you can use this to show physically how it's changing the city and the area surrounding the city with it. So there's a couple different ways to visualize a very, very boring population story. Numbers can be very boring until you start applying some of this to it. And you can make it real interesting, real quick. Let's go into the regular good old Google Earth, google.com/earth or earth.google.com. I normally don't show this tool just because most of you have probably been in it before and played around with it before. But they added something in late summer that I think is a bit of a game changer for journalists that I really like. And I want to make sure you guys see it because I've used it a couple of times now and found it effective. So go ahead and hit Launch Earth in Chrome down on the lower left. It works best in the Chrome browser, by the way. You should always be using the Chrome browser. I'm paid to tell you that, by the way. But actually, 86.7%, last time I checked the browser wars, 86.7% was Chrome. So, you want to be looking at your work in the through the same window that your audience is. So, thank God it's not Microsoft Explorer anymore. God. Remember those days? In the lower left-hand corner, this summer they added this little thing called the Measure tool, Measure Distance and Area. And I think it's a really handy little tool. So let's type in Memorial Stadium. Like that pops up, home of University of Nebraska football. We'll do more with football stadiums here in just a minute. And then you want to zoom in on it, kind of get a little closer here. Nice 3D rendering of the stadium. Okay. And if I wanted to know what the distance was from this little building over here, is this Burnett? I'm trying to remember. Burnett right here? Old Father, yeah. Burnett's right here, right? Yeah. Boy, it's been a while. You hit the little Measure tool, and I can click at the front of here, and I can show the distance over here. And it'll give me 130 meters. And I can convert this up here, too, into yards, feet, whatever. Okay, so it'll give me the distance. If I wanted to know what the rough square footage was around the stadium, you'd hit the ruler again, click around the stadium, and I'm just doing this very roughly. And it will give me an area, a perimeter and an area. It's in meters, but I can convert it to feet. 621,593 square feet. What kind of stories would a tool like this be helpful with? Anybody think of a story or just a useful application outside of journalism where this tool might be quite handy? Oh, yeah. Yeah, perfect. If you're trying to do a crowd estimate, even more so on game day, think about the protests that we cover sometimes where people cover city block after city block in Chicago protesting something. If you know 10 people fit in 10 square feet, you can figure that area, you take that area and then apply, the math, and you figure out the square footage, you know how many people fit in 10 square feet, and you do a pretty good crowd estimate. Think about how handy that would have been in 2016 when we had the inauguration. And people were quibbling over the amount of attendees at the Trump inauguration. We could have estimated it a lot more accurately if we would have had this tool to figure that square footage out. We could have painted right around the little areas where people had been standing. Okay? What are other things we need to measure distance? That's a classic one, figuring out attendance somewhere. But where else might we need distance? Yeah, mapping distance between various locations, it's something like distance from O'Rourke's to Duffy's. It's very old school. Here's a little more serious note. Remember the Las Vegas shooting? Happened late at night. Most of us were going to bed or I was already asleep. I woke up the next morning to this New York Times page. And overnight, they'd gone into Google Earth, and I'm going to show you how to extract this graphic in just a little bit out of Google Earth. And they had pulled this graphic out, and they already knew the range of the gunman's rifles. And they were able to determine, here's Mandalay Bay. He was up on the 32nd floor. Here was the Harvest Festival right here. They were able to determine the distance and show, the area was basically within range of all of his guns. As I mentioned earlier with the mapping, you can tell some very serious stories with this stuff. It's not a toy. So I'm going to go in there and take a look at Route 91 Harvest, South Las Vegas Boulevard. I stayed at that hotel just about 6 months before that shooting happened, and was doing a training out there. The thing I always noticed about was it's so close to Las Vegas Boulevard, and they didn't have great partitions here. I always thought somebody could drive a truck or a car off into this area and cause damage. I really thought it was, it was a really scary layout to it. He's right here. I could use a distance tool. Now I'm not measuring angle here. I am measuring from the base of the thing to the front of the stage, and I can have, in a matter of seconds, that it was 356 yards. I can convert it to feet too. It's 1,000 feet from the base of that hotel where he was at to the front of that stage. Okay. And graphics like this can really, bring a story home. It kind of lays out the whole area, and they had other coverage in here too, some of the social media coverage and things like that. A few weeks after the Las Vegas shooting, we found out that the gunman had reserved rooms at the Blackstone Hotel in Chicago on the day of Lollapalooza. He had the top 2 suites, and the Blackstone is this little hotel right here. And that's Michigan Avenue, South Michigan Avenue. This area here is Grant Park. It's where Lollapalooza is, okay? There are 2 main entrances in and out of Lollapalooza. The Balboa Avenue Bridge, which goes straight at the Blackstone Hotel. The other one is a Jackson Street Bridge right up here. It's DePaul University where I used to teach right there, okay? And Tanvir Ali, who's now at the Chicago Sun-Times, he did this for DNA Info Chicago, this graphic and story. He laid out the whole area here, and this whole area is bordered by an 8-foot high chain link fence. In some places it has barbed wire, because they don't want kids climbing over into the concert. So the only way out of here is to run at where the gunman was, okay? This sent a little chill up my spine. I've been to this concert 4 or 5 times over the years, and it brought that story home for me. We'll never know why he didn't show up at this concert, and instead he went to Las Vegas a few months later. But, it really, really caught the attention of a lot of people in Chicago when they saw this graphic laid out like this. You can add the little text on here a couple of different ways. You can do it in Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. There's also a great app for this called This, T-H-I-S. It is not a Google tool, but it's a phone app. You can put it on your iPad too. It's a great little tool. You can just tap on a photo and draw all over it. And I did this one. This was an overhead shot of all the construction at Wrigley Field. And I just put this on my phone, tapped on it, drew the arrow, and drew the labels on there. This, T-H-I-S, it's by Tin Rocket. It's for both iOS and it should be in the Google Play Store for the Android crowd as well. There it is at Cathedral Baseball. Said that a few weeks ago, and a guy goes, oh, you mean Fenway Park? I was like, oh, no. But again, very serious stories you can tell with this stuff. And again, they're not toys. They are not toys. Okay, so go back to Google Earth, earth.google.com. And on the home page, it has something called Earth Versions. Earth Versions. And as you scroll down here, you'll see some of their other, their phone app, Google Earth, pretty good little tool. And at the bottom, it has download Google Earth Pro on desktop, okay? And you can download this. It's a very heavy piece of software, okay? And when you're running it, it should be the only program you're running. Don't open Photoshop and a bunch of other stuff because it eats up a lot of CPU on your computer. It is a very, very, very powerful multimedia tool, and I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways you can use it. It's really cool. Downloads for free. Don't let the pro scare you. Some people go, oh my God, I've got to pay for this. No. So we'll open up Google Earth Pro. Once it downloads, it will take a little while to process. And what you'll find is it is a little icon that looks like this. It's a little beach ball right up here, upper right-hand corner. So when you open it, it'll pop up. It'll look like this. Looks like regular Google Earth, except it does so much more. It runs right off your desktop. It's got 3 main work areas. Okay, it's got layers, this little section down here. It allows you to add things on top of your globe. Labels of roads, weather, other things. 2 things you should always have checked are terrain and 3D buildings. Terrain will show mountains, trees, hills, topography basically. 3D buildings are buildings in an urban area, houses, things like that. Okay, always have those, make sure those are checked. One you should never ever check is photos. Because when you click on photos, it will show every image that anyone's ever shot with Google Street View. And all you get is a million icons on your globe, and it's or the topography that you're capturing the image of, and it looks horrible. And if you're recording a video, which I'm going to show you how to do in a minute, it'll make the video be very jittery and not good. So don't check photos for live. Borders and labels aren't very good in here. I'll show you a couple of tips with that in a minute. But 3D buildings and terrain are what you always want checked. The other key workspace is in the upper left-hand corner called Places. This is where you'll store things like videos you create, tours. We're going to show you how to do a tour. We're going to hop around to different Big Ten football stadiums. You can do little flyovers over the stadium. I call it the poor man's drone. If you can't fly a drone somewhere, you can do the little flyover in Google Earth Pro and capture it that way. Matt Waite will be the first to tell you, there are areas where there's Class Bravo airspace, you can't go. But you can still get there by using this tool. There are some no-fly zones in Google Earth. No-fly zone over Washington, D.C., so you can't capture the buildings there. They are flat. You can look at the topography of it, but you can't look at the 3D building renderings, which is unfortunate. The search field is up here in the upper left, similar to the regular Google Earth. And the third workspace are these little tools that kind of hang out over the top of the workspace. And as you hover over each one, it'll say what it is. The little camera is how you record video in a tour or a flyover, which we'll do here in a minute. The little clock, historical imagery. You can go back in time and look at what an area looked like 10, 15 years ago. Goes back, late 80s is the latest I've seen it go back. If you don't like it on Earth, you could go to Google Mars or Google Moon. And you can also export images out of here. Any video or photo you export out of here is rights free. If you're ever concerned about Google and whether or not you can use something you find in Google Earth or anything like that, go to google.com/permissions. And the permissions page has all the legalese you'll ever want to read. But I'll summarize it for you in 10 seconds. Basically, anything you export out of Google Earth, as long as you credit Google Earth, either as this watermark, or if it's covered up by a lower third, or it's cropped out in a photo, if you put it on a caption somewhere on the page, they don't care. All they want is that Google Earth is credited. It's yours to use. A lot of it's public data anyway. The NOAA, that's public data. US Navy, NASA has US Geological Survey. A lot of this data you find here is all public record anyway. You could find it elsewhere, okay? So let's go in and find some historical imagery. I'll show you how to download images out of here, including that New York Times graphic. So let's go to Memorial Stadium. We'll see how far back it goes. If not, we'll go somewhere else. I want to see what Memorial Stadium area looked like years ago. Okay, so I'll zoom in on it. Because I have 3D buildings turned on, I get a nice look, at the 3D rendering of the stadium, very pretty shot. Now, if I want this as a photo, all I have to do is click on this little button up here that says Save Image. It's the second one from the right. Save Image. And look what happens. Ooh, ugly graphics. I just uncheck under Map Options and get rid of them. And then save my image. And save it to my desktop. Now I've got an image. As I open it up, I'll have my image of Memorial Stadium, and the Google Earth watermark is in the lower left. For video, it goes in the lower right. Okay. Now let's say I want to go back and look at this image in past years. I'll zoom out just a little bit, see how this area has changed. In fact, I'll zoom out even wider because I want to get some of the Haymarket in here. Okay, there's the arena, Haymarket. So let's click on the little clock here, show historical imagery. And the most recent image here, it always gives the date down here, 6/4/2018. So, a little over half a year, not bad. And up here we have what's called the slider. And each little notch represents a new image. So let's go back to 2010. Oops. No basketball arena. Haymarket looks a lot different. The whole rail yard looks a lot different, doesn't it? The area around the stadium is a little different. See how far back we can go. 1999 satellite imagery was black and white of Lincoln, Nebraska. Isn't that amazing? 1993 is as far back as it goes. We'll see if it'll render. It probably won't even render. That would be an old image. So 99 is probably our oldest image. City looked a lot different. Now I can take the rendering of the stadium out of there by turning off 3D buildings. And it gives me the flat version of what Memorial looked like back then. Or I can leave it in. So if you're showing before and after, you can export this image, you can export the new image, and you can show the before and after. Question up in right field. It exports as JPEG. With the videos, when I'm about to show you, you can choose various formats for it. But the export here on Save Image, it always goes out as a JPEG. Yeah, but the image, the videos, you have some choices, which is actually a pretty big factor when we get to that. So, but good question, yeah. Yeah, for photos you can't choose a format, but with the videos you most definitely can. Usually I do MP4s. There's some others that you can do as well. So I'll close out of this, and we're going to go in and take a look at Route 91 Harvest Festival. I'm going to show you how they extracted that image, how the New York Times extracted that image that they used in their graphic. And they credited Google Earth in it. See this little gimbal up here? You take this and spin it around. Spin the globe, and I'll back it out. They actually had a little lower angle. You get the idea. And then they just did a save image. Bingo, you can start drawing on it. Okay, great way to find fairly current and historical imagery. Now the satellite passes over different parts of the world at different times. You know, I think the most recent imagery from the Wrigleyville neighborhood was St. Patrick's Day of last year. So we're coming up on a year without any fresh imagery. So, you know, there are parts of Montana, I've done some trainings up in Montana, there are parts of Montana they haven't seen a updated satellite imagery in more than a year, almost 2 years in some cases. So it varies around the world. There are 9 locations in Google Earth that you cannot see. They're blotted out, they're blacked out. Most of them are military installations that are in foreign countries. You know, the governments in various countries have come forth. A lot of them are U.S. military installations. Contacted Google and said, hey, there's reasons we don't want this being shown up here for national security reasons. You know, and that gets into a whole free speech versus, you know, safety issue as well. But, you know, they did make the call on those 9 locations. Area 51 used to be blotted out. Let's see if it still is. It goes back and forth sometimes for you conspiracy theorists out there. Area 51, let's see if it's still around. See if it even takes us to the right spot. It looks like it's going in there. Took us to the airport originally. Now we'll hop over here. Yeah, there it is. It was blurred out for the longest time. It was just blurry. You know, never fully rendered. But now it's back. There's Area 51. Okay. We're going to start with a little video. We're going to do a quick little flyover. And we're going to do it here in downtown Chicago. Because if Mike had a drone and he wanted to fly it over Willis Tower and get a nice, pretty shot right here, Mike would be in handcuffs by the time he landed the drone here on Jackson Boulevard. It's Class Bravo airspace, can't fly in it. Can't fly it over people, can't fly it over anything that's classified as Class Bravo. It's just too much risk. So here I've got this nice little Willis Tower shot I want to get. If I hit the little record button up here, record a tour, in the lower left-hand corner here, it installs a little player. I can record video. I can also plug in a mic and record audio on it, and it does pick up great audio off of this. So I'll go ahead and record this. You'll see the ticker going. Do a quick little zoom in. Do a nice little pan across. Maybe I'll spin the gimbal. This could get a little dicey, but I'll hit stop, and it automatically replays it. You'll see the little player down here. It'll automatically replay everything. So I can get a preview of what my video will look like. Might get a little spin here, which I would edit out later. Yeah, I got a little spin there. That's how you do it by hand, just kind of a little spin. I'll show you in a minute how you can program it to do it automatically. Okay. If I like my masterpiece, I can hit this little save button here, a little floppy disk. Hit OK. And there's a training video up on our primer that I gave you guys at the beginning, the handout, that walks you through all these steps to export and everything, so you don't have to remember them all. It's a 5-minute video and just walks you through all these steps. So now I've got my Willis Tower video over here. I'm going to export it by going up to Tools, Movie Maker. And here's where I can choose my formats. You know, H.264, I can export it as a PNG or a JPEG. I'm going to do it as an MPEG video. You do it as Windows media file. A lot of, picture quality I'll set to high just for export purposes, but I would probably do maximum. 720p, you can take it up to 2160 now, which is kind of cool. And I'll hit Create Movie. I'm saving it to my desktop. When you're exporting a video out of Google Earth Pro, go have some coffee, go chat with a friend. Do not open any other software when this is going. It'll do two things. One, it'll mess up your export. Two, it'll probably crash your machine. I've done it before. It's not pretty. Okay? So just take a little break and just let it work and export the video. This one's relatively short. It'll look a little choppy as it's processing. Don't worry about it. It all works its way out at the end of the video when it's exported. And it'll save it right to your desktop. Okay, just about done, bingo. And now on my desktop, I should have a video. Note the watermark down here. And I can take this then and edit it in Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro, whatever. If I want to edit out, add some text to it or something like that, edit out the little glitch I had in there of where it spun real fast. Okay. You also can create what's called tours. Tours will allow you to go from point A to B to C. Looks really cool. And to create one, you have to create a little folder over here. I've got one of Big Ten stadiums that we'll play with in a minute, another one of global locations. But I'm going to create a folder called Nebraska. We're going to give people a tour of Nebraska. What are some cool places around the state? So I've created the folder, and I'm going to go to my first location. I'm going to start at the capital. And I'm going to have you guys shout out some places around the state, not just in Lincoln, but around the state that we can go to. There it is. To create my first mark, I hit this little pinpoint up here called Add Place Mark. I'll uncheck it. Where do we go next? Give me somewhere out west.
Chimney Rock.
Chimney Rock. I knew that was coming. And I'll drop the pin mark in. Okay. Let's go back now. We'll zip back across the state. We'll go to Memorial Stadium. Okay, and I'll drop a pin mark in. And I'll drop it right here. But you also can drop pin marks in other areas. So maybe I can spin the gimbal a little bit and zoom out. I probably should have started out and zoomed in. And I'll add another place mark. Give me another location around the state. Carhenge, right there. I'll show you where you can control the flight time and the amount of time you spend on each location, because that is a big factor. You can make somebody dizzy real quick watching your video if you go too fast. We'll zoom in here. Okay. And that should be good. So now I'll go double click back on capital. And you just kind of have to eyeball in your flight time and things like that. Boy, that's a nice landing. Under preferences, touring, time between features, 5 seconds of flight time. Wait at features, I'll take it up to about 4. But you can adjust these kind of as you go. Determines how fast you fly. And a lot of it depends on distance. Like if it's 3 seconds of flight time, you're going over the Atlantic Ocean. Boy, that's going to go really, really quickly. But for around here, 500 miles, not bad. Okay, so I'll highlight the folder, and I'll just hit this little button down here. It's got a little folder, and it'll automatically record my video. So we'll just sit back and watch it go. It'll start out at the capital. It'll wait 4 or 5 seconds there. Then it'll go to the next location and drop you in. Beyond the tour of the state, what are some other stories we could use this for? Kind of a story can you tell being able to hop around like this and show different places?
It's going to be kind of fun to show how far teams travel to go to state.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. You start at the doorway of the school and have them go to Lincoln, and then bam, boom, have the next one go. University of Wisconsin actually did that. Their basketball team went down and played New Zealand and Australia. They toured down there. So the Madison, whatever the State Journal newspaper, the Lee Enterprises paper, did the little tour. They did just that and showed how each arena and each place they visited and stuff. It was a fascinating little tour. So now I'll save it. And of course, then I would export it the same way I did the video previously. Here's a fun one. We did this one not long ago. Eiffel Tower. We'll play that tour. And here we do a couple angles of the Eiffel Tower. See how we spun out from it? Then we'll go to I think it's Colosseum in Rome next. Yeah, go to the Colosseum. Then the next person in the room, I go, give me someplace really cool in the world. Of course, I was in Florida, so they told me Disneyland or Disney World. It's like, all right, that'll work. Now it's kicking over into my Nebraska stuff. It's pretty funny. Just automatically kicks over. It's actually a subfolder, that's why. Stop it mid-flight. Okay, so that's tours. Let's go to the moon. Click on the little planet and you go to the moon. Cool thing about this is it has craters. You can search by crater. You can search by lake. They actually have areas that are labeled lakes on here. Mountains. And you can also search by Apollo mission. Don't do like I did a few weeks ago. I typed in Apollo 13 instead of 12. It's one of my favorite movies. They didn't make it to the moon. And there's data in here that's come from NASA. everything from photos. They shot some great panorama photos back in 1969 of what it looked like on the moon. The astronauts and some of the automatic cameras did a great job. There's information about the different parts of the mission, how they surveyed the craters here. All this comes from NASA. There's also little videos that you can play on the different parts of the mission. Some really good stuff. Really helpful. I was doing a training at Florida today in Cocoa Beach, Florida a few weeks ago, and they love this. I mean, there's really, really good data. So if you're a big space fan, that's a good place to go. You can also go to Mars. Google Sky will take you up into the parts of the galaxy. And let's do Pathfinder. If I could spell today, Pathfinder rover. There's some really good panorama photos there. Bingo, with some data from NASA about it. Okay. So what are some practical uses of this tool? What are some things you think you could use this for? And beyond just the tours that we just talked about, but what are some things you could do with this resource? Think about the images, the tours, flyovers. What kind of stories can you tell using a tool like Google Earth Pro? Anybody have a cool idea? It can be local, it can be global. Where could it come in handy? A couple of examples. Did training for the Louisville paper last summer, Louisville Courier Journal. Bourbon is big business in Louisville. And a couple weeks after I left, the Barton Distillery collapsed. It's built on a hillside. And big story, made national news. They used Google Earth to kind of zoom in on the area where the warehouse is. They also flew some drones over later and got some drone footage. Oh, don't render it. Come on, render on me. There we go. Notice the nice text. They did that in Adobe Premiere. Then they got this photo from the fire chief. It's a lot of barrels of bourbon right there. Offered to help with cleanup, but that's a lot of money. Devastation. But a good use of Google Earth there helped you fly and kind of survey the area and see that it was built on this hillside. Another one they did looked at the worst golf holes in the city. They did a really nice job with the text here, real short flyover. They used those pinpoints that I showed you to fly over the area. And of course, their website's got a lot of ads on it. But you gotta pay the bills. They called it the Nasty Nine, worst golf holes. It's kind of funny, they're snarky in here. They make little comments and stuff. You also see some of the poor conditions of some of the golf holes. Welcome to Bogey Land. Training I did out in San Francisco, NBC affiliate in San Francisco was there. They're doing a look at the Hunters Point shipyard. It's a very controversial area in the city. It's waiting to load here. And they're cleaning up this area because it's had a lot of contamination. And it was a military area right off the harbor. And there's a lot of falsified data. There's a big class action lawsuit about the cleanup. And they used some of their own graphics combined with Google Earth to tell this story. They used some of it in the broadcast, but they did some of it in, let me play it here. They used some of it for a web-only video like this. This is NBC Bay Area. So you're really able to see that area where they were developing, and then they did a little zoom in. Notice there's no voiceover, there's just text. They used archived photos. 38 wasn't from Google Earth, but they pulled that one of the city's archives. But these photos are from Google Earth. They exported the satellite imagery out of them. And they pan over again. Great execution. Just gives you an idea of how they're trying to develop this old area that was contaminated with nuclear waste. They're trying to turn it into housing and retail development. You too can live on radioactive land. I mean, really, this is some pretty heavy-hitting stuff, but just a brilliant use of it. And they use some of it in the TV reports too. They have a longer video that has, I think it's a 3 or 4 part series, but this little web-only graphic worked really well. And God, I hate to do this to you guys. The Columbus Dispatch did a really nice little tour of football stadiums that Ohio State's going to play in. And this was before the season. They had their beat writer narrate it. But I'm going to show you because it's a real powerful use of the tool. Dude, they put up a firewall. They put up a firewall, didn't they? This is new for 2019. You're going to be spared. But they did a nice job of diving into the Jerry Dome in Texas and showing the inside of that stadium. Instead, let's look at Big Ten stadiums. Isn't that nicer? We'll do that. Just look at Big Ten stadiums as a whole. And let's move OSU down on the list. So there's Lincoln. And we'll do a little quick tour and look at the stadiums. I have about 7 or 8 of them in there. I had them when I go to each city. That's a pretty quick flight time. There's a big house. Some of these you can take down to street view level. You can look at the street view level of the 50-yard line. You can do that in Lincoln, OSU, the big house, a few other stadiums. I don't think Northwestern has it yet. Maryland, Ross-Ade Stadium. Northwestern Stadium, worst stadium in the Big Ten. I'm a season ticket holder. Worst stadium. Didn't zoom in on that one. That's Michigan State. A lot of memorial stadiums in our conference, Illinois, Indiana. You can create a little tour. This is a good way to introduce the football schedule each year. We tried doing the 50-yard line here. We'll see how it turned out with OSU. It didn't render it quite well enough. But you can get into Street View. You can show Street View. Okay. One more thing I want to show you with Google Maps, and it involves Google Earth and Street View. Something just to remember. Just go to maps.google.com and type in your home address. And we'll use the Pegman to go in to look at Street View. Looks like my Wi-Fi is dying on me. At least it waited till the end. There we go. And if you grab the little Pegman down here in the lower right-hand corner and drag him out there, you'll see that anything that's a blue line, the Google Street View car is driven by. And it's picked up some imagery. You also can use the Google Street View app on your phone to record a 360 image. It becomes searchable. And there we go. July of 2018. It's the front of my building. There's the L tracks. You can even see part of the Google van right in there. If you ever want to embed one of these into your web page, you can do it. Like if I wanted to show this area flooded in 2007, if I wanted to show what it looked like before it flooded, I could go in, or after it flooded, share embed image. It gives you a nice little slick player that'll embed right into your page. And it'll show the image. There it is. Gives you a little embed code right here. It's an iframe just like Google Maps. One thing you always want to look at in front of your house, if your car is parked in the driveway or on the street, make sure your license plate number is blurred out. Notice how it has software that automatically does this, but sometimes it doesn't always catch. And if they do show up in there, let me know. I can have Google go in and put you in touch with people with Google that will blur out your license plate. If you happen to be in your shot, there's an old shot of me out here watering my lawn one day. Sometimes it'll capture you. You're going out to the mailbox, you're standing in your front yard or something like that. If that's the case, they could blur your image out to your face out so they can't see who you are. For privacy purposes, that's something that you might want to consider. Okay? You just have to reach out to Google. Newslab support at google.com will do it, or just drop me a note and I'll get you in touch with them. So just a little safety thing I always try to remind people of. Because you never know when the Google Earth truck goes by and captures the images in front of your building. You might be standing there, or your license plates might be there for everybody to see, and you just don't want that laying around out there. All right, any final questions or thoughts or concerns? I have thrown a lot at you today. I know your head is spinning, mine would be too. Again, take 2 of these tools a week and play with them, practice with them, and you will become very proficient at them very quickly. So this weekend, if you're just chilling out, sit down and play around with Google Scholar and Google Trends. Next week, build a map. Week after that, spend the whole week on Flourish. Build those 2 exercises I gave you guys. Week after that, start in on Earth. Then just keep going and going and going until you become very proficient at it. Question, yeah?
So is the app Flourish free?
Yes, Google Flourish is free. Choose the free version. There's an upgraded version that you have to pay for. Part of that is storage. And the other thing is if you want to store or you want to create maps and keep them private, or graphics and keep them private, which you don't, you're going to want to publish them. You can keep them private up until the point you hit export and publish, and you're A-OK. No need to spend any money. Yeah, Flourish is free, so is Google Earth Pro. Yeah, everything I've showed you today is free.
Is there a way to get a copy of your PowerPoint that you have that has those files and stuff on there?
Nope, it's all in the handout.
Okay.
The reason why is they don't like us to give out the Google templates, because what's happened, and this actually happened to me, somebody took my presentation, put their name on it, and all of a sudden was at a journalism conference presenting my stuff as them. And they don't want the Google brand on something that is not somebody that's trained for them.
Handouts that we clicked on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that has everything on it and more. It has all the examples and everything. It's even better than the slides. So yeah, that first handout, and I'll go back to it, this top one here, this SPJ resources, that has everything I've shown you today, including the demos. Everything we did has been pre-recorded. All those training videos from Google are up there. So, you know, I mean, you're not going to remember the export step in Google Earth a month from now. I mean, nobody is. Sometimes I even forget it. Go back and play the video, you know, and it's right there for you. That's why I did that little handout for you. Well, congrats for staying till the bitter end with me. That's a lot of Mike Riley. That's 4 hours of me, man. I don't even like myself for 4 hours, you know. Some good stuff. But yeah, it's a good way to spend a cold Nebraska afternoon, and it's good to be back home for a couple days. Always miss coming back to Lincoln and get back whenever I can. Got my 35-year class reunion this summer. Lincoln Northeast. Any Rockets here? No Rockets? Yeah. Then back for the Daily Nebraskan reunion next fall. End of August? Yeah, I think at the end of August. All right, I'll stick around if you have any questions. Have a fantastic week. And stay in touch. If you build something with the tools, I want to see it. Have a good one. Oh, stop. Stop.